Hey, I'm Nick, I'm autistic. Welcome back to my channel. What I want to talk about today is the worst job interview I've ever had in my life. This was about 5 years ago, and this place down the street from where I used to live called me up with like, hey, we want you to come in for an interview at 7 a.m. And that fit in with my schedule, so I went down there, and I was looking for a job because the place I was working at was an hour away, and my car was gonna die, and I didn't have money for a new car at the time. So I went to this job interview at 7 a.m. and they bring me in. They like, oh, before we actually give you a tour or anything, we need you to take a survey. And it was at this point that I really started having my doubts about this interview, because I realized that any place that says, oh, you need to take a survey, is usually going to be some kind of trash place to work at. So I did the survey. They gave me the tour, and halfway through the tour they go, we don't think you're going to get hired here. You don't seem like a good fit for the job according to your resume. That's a really weird thing to say, especially when you haven't even begun the interview. So I'm there. I'm gonna decide to see the thing through, see where it's actually gonna go. So we get to the interview. There's like 3 or 4 people in the same room with me, and it's a bunch of people in like the 40s and 50s. Well, I don't think any of them were 40, but definitely in their 50s. And they're just like all got that attitude of they're reluctant to be there. Some people are just miserable. It's pretty obvious right when they sat down and started talking. And they're like, oh, you don't have any experience. You worked at this current place for like 6 months, and you're trying to leave. You look like a quitter. They literally said that to my face. And I explained to him about the situation of my car and how I don't have money for a new one. And he's like, oh, you probably don't even live nearby. I'm like, dude, read my address. It's on the paper. He's like, oh, you're up the street. Cool. And they acted like the interview was bothering, like taking time out of their day, which is ridiculous, because I'm there at 7 a.m. I didn't have to be there. And they're the ones desperate for work, because they've had a sign up front of their place for like 2 months. And so the interview goes on like, oh, well, you have no experience. What, you're like, how are you gonna do anything here? It's like, well, you could train me. And they kind of had an attitude with that. And like, well, do you even know how to do this or that? And so I went to school for electronics, stuff like computers, stuff like that. And they're like, oh, well, we do electrical work. That's not the same thing. I'm like, I understand that, but I can learn, and I'm willing to learn. And they're like, oh, but we still have to train you on stuff. And they basically were one of those places that expected someone to have like 40 years experience, and that they didn't have to do anything with. That's why you hire a machine. That's why you buy a machine, by the way. And so the interview goes on a little bit more like that, like reluctance, like, oh my god, why do we have to train people for this? And so they go, okay, we're gonna talk this over. You wait outside. So I'm out there outside of the room for 15 minutes, and the person who called me and the HR person was like, yeah, we decided you're not the right fit for the company. I'm like, oh, okay. So what I wanted to say was fuck you, but I just took the high ground, just walked out, and that was like a 2-hour waste of my morning. It was ridiculous, and I don't know how that place, like, it just seems like a toxic environment. So that's the worst interview I've ever had in my life. And I'm glad I didn't even tell them that I'm autistic, because I probably wouldn't even gone a phone call or just like told to get out as soon as I walked up to the door. But yeah, it's just, I'm just very selective with jobs. So hope that's all I got today. Thank you for watching.